Thank you. Thank you very much for that. What an amazingly full room. How fantastic it is to see you all here. Welcome to you all, and thank you so much for joining us today at the BSI Standards Conference and the BSI AGM. We have a great programme for you where we will gain a truly global perspective with a focus on the consumer point of view. It's extremely timely that today we are able to focus solely on artificial intelligence. It is such a rapidly evolving field, surrounded by equal amounts of excitement over the potential benefits and concern over undesirable consequences. It is vital to be able to have the type of discussion we hope to have today to help us understand how to enable the development of AI that is fair, safe, and beneficial to everyone, and what the role of standards should be. We are privileged to have a great lineup of speakers and panelists with us today and look forward to hearing their insights. We also have a number of exhibitors in the knowledge marketplace who are keen to explain what's happening with AI in their respective areas. But before we delve further into the subject of the day, I just want to mention a bit of admin. I always get the admin slot, so look forward to this. You may have noticed very little paper or printed materials. That is very intentional and forms part of our efforts to make our events as sustainable as possible. In lieu of more paper, you will find the agenda on the back of your name badges and via the QR code which is shown on the screen. Also available via the QR code is your digital delegate pack, which has all the information about speakers and exhibitors, as well as some links to further reading related to our theme of protecting consumers in the age of AI. In case of emergency, follow staff instructions and use the nearest exit. The meeting point is Palace Avenue, which is just around the corner. The majority of the standards conference sessions will take place here in the Palace Suite. The BSI AGM will be held here in the Palace Suite as well, and the concurrent session will take place upstairs in the York Suite. All breaks, food, drink, and the knowledge marketplace, as you will have no doubt already discovered, is just outside those doors there in the Palace Suite foyer. We also have a designated quiet area if anyone needs to step away for a call or just for some quiet space, and that is upstairs in the Piano Kensington. There are plenty of my colleagues around here who will happily help you, so if you forget what's happening, please make yourself known and they will very happily help you. There's also the registration desk, which will be manned all the time, so you can go there as well. Coming back to the subject of today, we are delighted that this year the Standards Conference is the featured public event of the annual meeting of ISO's COPOLCO, the Consumer Policy Committee. And therefore, we also have the ISO COPOLCO members with us to share their perspectives. We felt it was fitting to have our first fully consumer-focused standards conference, not only because BSI is hosting the ISO COPOLCO Week, but because this year is the 40th anniversary of the UN Guidelines for Consumer Protection, which is seen as a foundational and transformational tool underpinning most, if not all, consumer protection activity. The UN Guidelines define consumers as a natural person, regardless of nationality, acting primarily for personal, family, or household purposes. Often, the word consumers and customers are used interchangeably, but they are not the same. The distinction is customers are primarily those who make purchases, while consumers are those who use or consume the goods and services. In the world of standards development, both at ISO and at BSI, we recognise the importance of the consumer voice in order to develop standards that effectively protect consumers and make products and services better, safer, and easier to use. The consumer voice in ISO standardisation is led by COPOLCO, and at BSI by the Consumer and Public Interest Network. I'm very pleased that we have Dr. Moon, Chair of ISO COPOLCO, and Julie Hunter, Chair of BSI's Consumer and Public Interest Network, here with us today to share a few words with you all. Please welcome Dr. Moon, Chair of ISO COPOLCO.
Thank you, Anne. Hello, everyone. On behalf of COPOLCO, I'd like to express thanks for your kind invitation. And it is a privilege to speak COPOLCO and its role today. So let's Go next screen, please. Okay. AI age, it has three hard truths. The first, AI is too fast. Oh, sorry. It's not the first one. Yes. Start again. It's good to repeat so that you remember. So, from the consumer perspectives, AI has three hard truths. The first, AI is too fast and too powerful and invisible. So AI shapes our lives in silence. Second, protection are too slow, even scattered and weak. And laws, regulations can keep up. And consumer rights are unclear in AI. And last truth, everyone chase AI growth. Business, government, academia, but consumers left behind. So we have seen this before, emerging new technologies. Let's remember the early day of car. Car gave us freedom, great benefit, but also danger. Then comes traffic light everywhere and crossroad, global standards. So standard didn't stop progress, technology progress. They didn't stop industry growth, but they saved lives. So think about AI. AI, not yet. There's no traffic lights, no red lights. That's why we need global standards. That's why COPOLCO matters now. So, COPOLCO mission in practice. COPOLCO is the voice in ISO, unique structure in ISO. We shape standard to protect people, from the product recall to redress, from safety to inclusion. And we also turn consumers' need into global rules, global standards. In the age of AI, consumer rights are the digital human rights. That's why COPOLCO's role is more critical than ever. Oops, sorry. Oops. Okay, last slide is missing. So there's a COPOLCO mission. We want to put consumers first in the era of AI. We want demand safety. We want demand truthworthy. So to deliver this forward, COPOLCO launched new initiatives. COPOLCO AI white paper on building consumers' trust in AI. So it delivers a clear message that why consumers should be first in AI. So I really looking for to share it with you. And so Thanks for attention, and then all COPOLCO leaders and members will be around today, so let's talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moon, and we look forward to seeing that white paper. So I now would like to welcome Julie Hunter, Chair of BSI's Consumer and Public Interest Network, and Sadie Dainton, BSI's Senior Consumer Policy Manager, who will join Julie.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to set the scene for today by talking about who consumers are and how consumer voices can help to shape standards that have a positive impact on society across a range of sectors, products and services, including all of those touched by AI. First of all, I would like to ask, who do you think of when you hear the word consumers? I'll give you a moment to look at these pictures and think of your own pictures in your mind. Who do you think of? What words come to mind when you hear the word consumers? There's no slide big enough to capture the diversity of consumers. You can see some of the pictures here. They can be young, old, and every age in between. They live in different countries all over the world. They might live in rural areas or big cities. And in the course of a year, their lives are impacted by their interactions with hundreds or thousands of different organisations and lots of different goods and services. Consumers take part in lots of activities. They eat, they drink, they shop, they travel, they study. And so in these different circumstances, consumers may also be known as customers, end users, residents, shoppers, passengers, guests, patients. The words are endless, but all of them are consumers. In simple terms, consumers are people. They are you, me, our families, friends, neighbours, colleagues. But as people, we are all unique and diverse, with very complex lives. We come from a variety of cultures, we have different backgrounds, different personalities. We think differently, we do things differently. We have complex personal lives and circumstances, and we all have different needs and abilities. At different times in our lives, we'll have different physical health, mental health. We may have different levels of literacy, numeracy, digital skills. It's estimated that around half of people at any one time have at least one characteristic of vulnerability. When we talk about consumers, we might be talking about one person. We might be talking about many individuals, local communities, national populations, or even global citizens. So a consumer could be one person to 8 billion people. Now, this is where it comes onto standards, really, because we're going to talk about organisations. Organisations' behaviour is critically important and has a big impact on consumers' lives. Consumers are impacted by quality, design, and delivery of all the goods and services they come into contact with at all stages of the consumer journey. But they're also impacted by systems and processes, how organisations handle data, complaints, how they treat customers, how they communicate information. Now, good practice can lead to positive outcomes, and it can increase consumer confidence and trust. But poor practice can lead to consumer harm and have wide-ranging and complex impacts. So you'll see down the side of the slide there, we've got some of the examples of harm: financial harm, physical, psychological or social. And I've made social a different colour because I think it's most relevant here in the age of AI, but it's things like barriers to access, exclusion, discrimination and bias. And it's important to remember that consumers in vulnerable circumstances, which could be any of us at any time, are at greater risk of harm. They find it more difficult to understand, communicate, make decisions, and pursue complaints. Some harm is intentional. It's against the law. For example, fraud. But criminals don't buy standards. Responsible businesses use standards. And most businesses want to do the right thing, but they can cause harm unintentionally, accidentally, with systemic built-in issues like poor design and processes that can lead to digital exclusion. AI decisions, for example, based on poor quality data or biased algorithms. Can also be caused by things like negligence, just a lack of understanding about the consequences of actions. The good news is that, as we're here at a standards conference, is that standards have the potential to have a positive impact on consumers and society by setting good practice for organisations. But there are two key ingredients to realising the full potential of standards. First of all, is how they're developed. Consumer interests must be at the heart of standards. This means a credible and robust multi-stakeholder approach to ensure that all voices are heard. That means effective consumer representation at all levels of decision-making. The second key ingredient is how standards are used. How are they applied and used in the real world in the right way by the right organisations as a consumer protection tool? There's no point having an amazing standard if nobody uses it and nobody is impacted by it. Once you have a good standard, it can be used by many different types of organisation. So businesses, it can help them to meet customer needs, get things right, mitigate risks. Government can use them to support or underpin legislation, giving the detail needed to help businesses implement that good practice. So why is it so important that consumer stakeholders are represented in the development of standards? They add value. They add a unique, valuable perspective. They are consumer experts, they're independent, and they're working only in the interests of consumers with no conflicts of interest. They help others to see through a consumer lens, and they help others to understand the needs and experiences and the behaviours of consumers. But consumer stakeholders face challenges to participation. They're non-profit organisations with very limited resources in terms of time, money and people, which can affect their ability to participate. The consumer voice is significantly underrepresented at national and global level in all countries. So to build credible and robust standards that can have a positive impact on society with all voices heard, NSBs need to commit to strengthening the consumer voice. Thank you. I'm just going to pass over now to Sadie Dayton.
And we have very good examples of consumer representation through CPIN, and Julie is the chair. I just want to talk about a little bit about what BSI is doing to redress the balance of the consumer representation. So we have a consumer policy team, and we have 5 people. And the consumer policy and standards focuses on the role of consumer protection standards and the positive impact they can have on our society. We engage across the consumer protection landscape, focus on the value that consumer representation brings to ensure credible and robust British standards. Our team also facilitates consumer representation across all the technical committees, working with our excellent BSI colleagues. And consumer policy is the UK member of COPOLCO. I just want to say a little about CPIN. The important thing about CPIN is the consumer policy team provides the secretariat both to CPIN and the BSI Consumer Forum. And we operationalise CPIN, but CPIN is an independent voice. It has its own governance and decision-making, and it decides for itself, its organisation, strategic priorities, and objectives, and it brings credibility, integrity, and impartiality. CPIN also collaborates with a broad consumer protection landscape through our BSI Consumer Forum. And CPIN is also part of the is a member of ANEC in the European level and a member of Consumers International. So it can also contribute to European and international standards. Thank you, Tim. So you haven't had the best bit yet. So we are presenting the BSI Consumer Forum. You can see it's across the consumer protection landscape of the UK. All regions are represented. So we have the consumer protection members through colleagues in the government, the UK Regulators Network and the Office for Product Safety and Standards, and also CTSI, the Trading Standards. Consumer advocacy is brought about through these organisations you see there, and importantly, CPIN as part of this group, bringing the consumer voice directly into standards. And special focus groups, you can see there, it's very important to represent the broad diversity we have in the UK of the consumer organisations. And BSI provides a secretariat and also has an opportunity to network with these organisations, encouraging them to engage in their priority standards, and also encouraging to share data and research with CPIN so that it can bring the whole voice of society into our standards work. I mentioned one standard, ISO Consumer Vulnerability. We have very good representation on this international standard, but it is also then being adopted by Consumer Scotland and the Consumer Council of Northern Ireland. They are using it to demonstrate their credibility to the government. And also the UK, many regulators are pointing to this standard to inspire the business to operate best practice. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Don't take that with you. Thanks very much. Thank you, Julie, Sadie and Dr. Moon. Really appreciate all of your comments that have really got us focused on consumers for the day. Which leads me on to introducing our headline speaker, Rachel Coldicutt, OBE. Rachel is a researcher and strategist specialising in inclusive, community-powered innovation and the social impacts of new and emerging technologies. She is founder and executive director of research consultancy Careful Industries and was previously founding CEO of responsible technology think tank Everyone, where she led influential and groundbreaking research into how technology is changing society and developed practical tools for responsible innovation. Prior to that, Rachel spent almost 20 years as long working at the cutting edge of new technology for companies including the BBC, Microsoft, BT and Channel 4, and was a pioneer in the digital artwork. Rachel, in 2019, was awarded an OBE in the New Year's Honours for services to the digital society. So welcome, Rachel, and you don't have to introduce yourself now. Just
Hello, can you hear me? Am I on? Great. Right. I was thinking about what to talk about, and I have a lot of the things I normally talk about when we talk about the harms of AI and the opportunities. I normally talk about bias and justice, impacts on work. And then I started to look around, and I was thinking, no, I'm going to talk about something else. Today. I'm going to talk about the kind of real life of living in a world that is flooded with apps and pop-ups and all kinds of things. And So I don't know, does everyone here, I just want to check, everyone know who Goldilocks is, right? Do we know who Goldilocks is? We know the story. And so I've worked on the internet for years and years and years. And I spent probably the first 10 years of my working life putting a bit more digital in everything, sort of getting everyone to make something behind a login so that we could have an amazing account and we could have recommendations and we could personalize everything and tailor it to people. And then, over time, I started to realize how difficult it is to make those things work really well. And then looking at all the rights implications that come along with that, and a lot of the other issues that we have in a society. And for about the last 5 years, I've been talking about this idea of what is just enough, right? And back when I started talking about this, I think in 2019, it was thinking about the internet. But I think it applies to AI too, because what's happening with AI is that it is absolutely powering extraordinary breakthroughs. Research uses are amazing. But in terms of day-to-day, it is not amazing, right? And it's not amazing because there's a problem with the technology. It's a problem because there are no rules. Everyone can do whatever they like. And when everyone does whatever they like, it doesn't tend to be great for us as individuals. And so I don't know if people will have seen this. This is very nerdy if you're into AI. In 2023, a group of very esteemed scientists and executives came together and wrote a letter saying basically, we have made this thing that is so amazing, we are going to bring about the end of the world. Can someone stop us? I mean, that's the entirety of the letter. And the first person there is the person who invented machine learning, right? And it feels to me that some of the message in that is everyone know the word humble brag? It has that sort of energy, right? They're basically saying, we're so amazing, we've made this terrible thing, no one can do anything about it, not even us. And it was unusual for me because I don't normally, in my daily life, work on the kinds of things that make these kinds of headlines. The kinds of things I work on quite often get called complex and nuanced, and people don't really understand them, basically. And so this was interesting that the moment everyone was talking about it is AI was going to bring about the end of the world, right? But, and so then, just earlier this year, I'm assuming not everyone here is a technical expert, right? So there's this idea that general artificial intelligence is possible, right? And general artificial intelligence is what you see in sci-fi largely. It's, fully autonomous human-like machines and things. And about 2 months ago, one of the people who runs an AI company that people may have heard of, who make a chatbot called Claude, wrote this thing to say that possibly by next year, so we're what? Is that 9 months away, 2026? We might have a country of geniuses living in a data center. I mean, I don't know what this means, but I think what he's saying is artificial intelligence will become general intelligence, super intelligence. But the reality of my life, right, is not that. The reality of my life is turning up to a hotel at 11 o'clock at night on a business trip and getting my phone out and having to type this code in to a thing like that, rather than talking to a person at the desk, right? It's like not being able to get parking. it is like standing outside an Amazon locker that has been damaged in the rain. It is like this weird thing where you can't just pay the price for something at the supermarket. You have to walk around with a special zappy thing that's connected to your Nectar card to get a price that is less than, oh, I don't know. Anyway, it's bad. And like 10 years ago, there were people who thought that what we would be heading into now was this amazing world where it's like we were like living in the clouds and no one had to do anything because AI would be incredible. But like this is me like in the supermarket, like what is going on? Nobody needs this. And I think that this is like what being a consumer is like in the age of AI. It's like really annoying. And what we get, like a lot of the time in the interfaces that we have, are things that are just good enough, right? They're not amazing. They give us loads more work. We are working really hard. We are, like, I get my milk delivered at home. To change the order, I had to update an app last night, which was so annoying, right? I don't want to do that. And so it's like, I would say it's not that we're necessarily in the age of AI. We're in, as individuals, battling mediocrity. And mediocrity is not good enough. This is likely to get worse. The next wave of AI is agentic. You know, this world in which we have is essentially, you know, I imagine right now in businesses all over the world, people are generating their emails with an LLM to be sent to someone who will respond to them with an LLM, or another AI tool will spot it and put it in the spam. It's like, we don't need this. And like, sometimes you just want to talk to someone, right? It is absolutely the case that there are many things that can be done faster, easier, quicker. But the reality is not everything that gets deployed now really works. What happens is nothing can be tested for every way it could be possibly used. No one can anticipate it, which means we're very likely to quite quickly come up against the edges of things. Like, who here hasn't spent an annoying hour trying to do something trivial, like change an address on a bill and get just like pinged around between meaningless things, right? That there could be better ways. The other thing that is happening is generative AI, right? So generative AI does some things that are helpful, but it also does a lot of things that nobody needs. And I mean, this is obviously the kind of ultra, but underneath that, right, what we have is just a lot of like low quality information that is out there. Some of it is right, some of it is wrong. As individuals, how much time do you want to spend looking at a picture thinking, does that person have the right number of hands, right? That is like something I would like to take for granted, like until like aliens come and we're in like a Doctor Who episode where like that could be a thing. Don't want it, thank you. We also have like this, in this world where like I recently had to update the software on my oven. I mean, fine. But it's like all those pop-ups, right? Who are these serving? And so as an individual, like when you're getting a product out the door now, right? I think what is very difficult to be thinking about is what are the 300 other things that person is going to be interacting with that day? What are the many other things they're going to be butting up against? And I think nothing I've shown you here is completely terrible. It's just not very good. And the problem is we've just got many, many, many things that are not very good. And then AI is making things up. So this here is, somebody asked Google when the next Encanto film was coming out. He was talking to his daughter, typed it in, and it made up a film that doesn't exist. Right, and so if you're going about your daily life, you might be working, you might be looking after kids, you might have all kinds of responsibilities and things to do. The idea that then we have to do a fact check on everything we're looking up is like a massive overhead, and it makes us much more vulnerable, right? Makes us very easy to make errors we may not normally make. We're now in a world as well where like there's no kind of like the news that we have, and like there's this phrase which is epistemic security, right? We don't really know. Not only do we not know what is real, but no one here possibly has read the same news this morning. No one here is exposed to the same major stories. Like there's a very fragmented environment in terms of what is real, what is not, what is important, what is not. If you're getting your news via an influencer, it's going to look very different to getting it via the BBC, right? And so how can people be equipped in this very unstable environment to make choices that work for them without already getting into the fact that books that have been written by LLMs rather than people are now in libraries, without the fact that AI is being used to deep fake people based on like, I think you can now use 2 seconds of voice to mimic an individual, which is extraordinary, right? And so the amount of work we have to do as individuals in this environment is too much. But how can we create rules that support all these conflicting things is my question. And then as well, right, there's this other really difficult, problematic thing that's happening, which is that as individuals in fragmented, problematic societies where many people are vulnerable for different reasons, where there are not safety nets, how can we know what is a genuine charitable cause, for instance, and not? Like, and so the door is open to the scams now in ways we could never have dreamt of, right? And so it's like, the point I'm trying to make here is it's like layer upon layer and layer and layer of different things, which overall are sort of building up and making us vulnerable. Down to, like, who here, put your hand up if you've had an SMS that says, "Hi, Mum, I don't have my phone now, I'm texting from a different number." Right. And I had this extraordinary conversation with my mum, who knew it wasn't me and texted me to say, "I've had a text from a number that isn't you, but how did they know I'm your mum?" Right? And it's not that my mum is, silly, right? It's because in that moment when you take your phone out, there's something in your heart, right, that moves. It's not logical. It's not, you're not sort of going down a tree that thinks, I'm the mother of this person. Is this them or not, right? It's very clever. And then lastly, on top of all of this, all these things, we now know that actually some of the AI that is being rolled out to us in the workplace is sort of counterintuitively making it harder to do jobs, right? So I've worked with hundreds of people over the last year in work environments, helping them think about how to use AI responsibly at work. And the thing that is super interesting is, unless you work in an environment that is very rule-based and very data-heavy, it's almost impossible for one individual over there to replicate the way that another person is using generative AI. It's like in knowledge work broadly, what happens is it creates new work, because if you use an LLM, somebody then has to look at your work to see if it's right? And so it's everything is just building up and building up and building up, and then on top of it all, it's like using loads of energy. And I read a great thing today in the FT by someone who is an amazing campaigner around AI and the environment, to say that using generative AI is like turning on the lights in a stadium when you go to the bathroom, right? In terms of the water use, the energy use, the minerals, the heavy computing that has to happen in the background to do all those things. They're not making life better, and for many people, they are actively making it worse. And so at the moment, in the States, Elon Musk has a data center that I think is powered by methane turbines that is leading to very high levels of illness in the community, and people are on their feet. Meanwhile, in Ireland, we know that sometimes the domestic energy supply is cut off for people because they are servicing data centers. And so it's like all around us in all these different ways, from these minor inconveniences to critical threats to health, AI is not making things better. And it's not making us all equally rich, right? These 8 billionaires are having a great time, right? And that wealth that is moving around off the back of technology is not for everyone. I will hurry up. I don't know how much time I have left. I'm fine. Right. So the other thing that's happening is back to what I was talking about, where we don't know, it's impossible when you're putting a product into the world that is maybe like a bot or something that is using generative AI to know all the ways it might work. The other thing that is happening is there's an arms race in technology at the moment. Oh, sorry, hang on, where have I gone? Yeah, there's an arms race. So what's happening there is that we've got lots of technologies being released that maybe don't really work, right? So DeepSeek came out in January. The Chinese LLM, within 3 days, OpenAI rushed out an alternative that was terrible, right? And so things are going to market without appropriate checks. So what to do about it? And I have a lot of sympathy in a way. As I was saying, it's very difficult to know what your product is or what it does in the world. It's very difficult to legislate against that. These are the things that actually, from a regulatory and a government perspective, are really difficult, because no one owns this. Nobody owns like the whole of life, which is what this is. This doesn't split neatly into news, finance, education, health. It's everything. And I think ultimately, what we're looking at here is that it's really important to listen to the experiences that people have, respond to them. Consumer power is the most important thing here. The only way that things will be better is if people have the ability and the agency to make better choices that work for them. Most of us do not have that at the moment, right? And I think this is really important to say. Life is busy and hard for most people, and you're hustling and you're doing whatever you can. And so I think it's really important to think, when we're thinking about our standards and how they work, can we make them really work for people in those complicated moments, in those vulnerabilities, when everything is happening at once. And that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much for that. I just want to warn you all that we've got now an opportunity for some questions, probably 10 minutes for questions, but because I get the microphone, I get to go first. So we've got microphones coming around, so in a minute I'll ask you to stick your hand up. But Rachel, one of the things that I was thinking as you were talking was about scams, which is sort of something that we all hear about all the time, especially as an issue for consumers. What do you think the impact of AI is on that? Do you think it increases it, or do you think it provides more solutions to how we could stop it?
Well, I mean, so I think one of the issues here is that AI is like across the whole stack. So we've got a massive rise in AI organised in serious crime, which is the cause of most of these scams, and that seems very likely that, the more automated those things become, the volume of them will just go up and up and up and up, right? And then I think safety tech is problematic. Speaking of an area that doesn't have standards, safety tech, which is meant to be used to make technology better, does not currently have any standards it needs to conform to, which seems odd to me, I have to say, but it's a deliberate policy choice, certainly in the UK. And so actually, a lot of the responsibility comes back to us as individuals. And I think, we'll all know, although at the moment there are like loads of podcasts and TV programs about kind of big grifts and scams, the ones that get you are the mundane, everyday, discrete ones, right? It's the site that looks like the government's site but is just very slightly different. It's the text from the person who's pretending to be your kid. And that actually, I think we spend a lot of time talking about AI, looking for big, dramatic things, but actually, when we're thinking about the harms, probably think of AI equally as being a multiplier and intensifier of many harms that are already there.
Thank you. So I'm aware of time. Is there any questions from the audience? Oh, brilliant. Yes. There's a microphone over there. That will to that person there.
Thank you. That was absolutely amazing. My question is, you touched on quantum computing. We're just, I guess, around the corner from that.
Yeah.
What do you think the impact of quantum computing is going to be on AI?
I mean, I think one of the things I would say is that it's important to step back a moment. And so I'm bringing more of a socio-technical lens here rather than thinking as a pure technologist. And I think the impact of the Trump presidency on global standards is going to be hugely problematic. And I think as the potential of quantum gets rolled out, it's likely to be rolled out in an increasingly unstable, volatile, deregulated market. I think, I would hesitate to predict, but it feels very likely that this trend of, products that are 80% done being put to market with the idea that they get market fit through use is likely to lead to a lot of when we have AI and quantum together, we are going to get intensified harms that are then much harder to put back in the box. And so, although to a degree we've missed the boat on putting in I've been working in AI standards for 10 years now, and I think we're sort of nearly nowhere. So having missed the boat on that, there's an opportunity to get ahead of the game, I think.
Thank you. We've got a few questions. So have we got... Let's go, lady here, and let's take a couple. Keep your hands up so I can see where else to go. Lady in this row here, and then maybe these three people here, and then we'll see how far we get through that.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm from Australia, from the Standards Delegation. I love that you said that consumers hold the ultimate power, but what I'm concerned about is a lot of the things that you mentioned highlighted the fact that opting out is not really an option. So if standards are challenging and opting out is not an option for us, what do you think is our power? How can consumers use our power?
I think it's collective action. The problem with that is it needs organising, and that I think, right, so individually, no one of the things I've talked about is enough to get most people on their feet, other than the environmental costs. And it's really difficult. There's a sitcom here called Father Ted, and there was a scene where someone's holding a sign, I think, that says "down with this sort of thing," and that's the problem, right? Problem is it isn't one thing; it's like all of it, and so it's like I think the two things that we need are a narrative. What are we talking about? How can we name it? And then how can we help people to mobilise together? But it's the difficulty of pointing at a thing, I think, that is the underlying issue. That makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Let's do this gentleman in the front. I think we've got time for maybe one more, sorry. Okay.
Hi. So my question is that you mentioned about the potential of energy crisis as more and more data is processed to feed those AI-hungry applications. My question is really, is the government across the globe thinking of how to address this seemingly very serious issue?
There is some hope for movement on this in Europe. At the Paris AI Summit, the French government have made some, have started to make some useful moves, and they're investing in what might be an alternative approach to developing AI. I think the issue right now is there's a very complex regulatory landscape. In the UK, for instance, our government here feels hugely under pressure to meet the needs of business by building data centres quickly, very often not in consultation with communities. I think 18 months ago, there were 4 boroughs in London that couldn't build any more houses because data centres around the M4 were using such a lot of energy, there wasn't enough to power the grid. And so what's happening is, overall, economic needs are being prioritised, and there's this idea that if you want to focus on renewables or alternatives, or be cautious that you are anti-progress, right? And so we're in a place, I think, where particularly the influence of technology companies lobbying governments is making it very difficult to get to better outcomes, and it's really important that changes fast.
Okay, this really is the last one. This lady here, sorry. I haven't seen any hands up over there, but I feel really guilty that I'm ignoring you.
Thank Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for an amazing talks. I hope I don't offend anybody by asking this. Following your comment about technology companies monopolizing the governmental lobbying. I mean, for example, during COVID, we were privileged to use AI for chemical reactions, that is, to predict a product. And when we were allowed to use the systems, personally, I found there was a lot of bias. So it was the technology company who kindly had sponsored the AI system, but any other product came down the list. And so would it be a thought that there should be some kind of standard to start the day whereby there is to try and eliminate the bias? And thanks for listening, and I hope I haven't taken any more time up.
And so bias is really difficult because we live in a biased world, right? And so one of the problems with bias in AI is that there are a number of things that impact it. But if data is biased, which all data is biased to a degree, you will get biased outcomes. It becomes worsened if you then have biased algorithms and decision-making systems. But one of the problems is, right, the fairness is very difficult to legislate for. And so while we absolutely need to take action on those systems, it probably means that we have to build into those standards a degree of, like, we have to acknowledge that there is bias in everything. We cannot say we will apply a standard and bias will be removed, which is why I think overall, rather than thinking how can we automate everything, to sort of bring it back to where I started, we need to not just be thinking about improving the products, but we need to be thinking about less of them. We need to be thinking about just enough, and how can we make space around them for the rest of life, I think.
Thank you. Rachel, thank you so much for your time and for answering the questions from the audience, and we really appreciate your insights, and actually very consumer focused, which is spot on, so thank you very much. Join me in thanking Rachel. Thank you.